So a bit of background, like yourselves, we started to hear noises from academics early on in sort of April time about the challenges of lab and field work when the pandemic hit in. And we're also aware that looking to the future as well, there's various other reasons why virtual field work and has been put about, you know, the environmental impact of field trips, potential civil unrest and travel restrictions, which we might be seeing more and more of at the moment. So we decided to spend a couple of weeks talking to some people, looking around to see what lab and field work was around, and to see what the challenges might be, to see what we in JISC might be able to help and help you out. We look more longer term. We sort of have a 3-year plus window, but a lot of that has sort of come crashing towards us much quicker with the pandemic. But our aim is to look for opportunities that we can help maybe to sort of accelerate and take forward into the sector. So I'm very interested and very keen today to see the sorts of things that might be coming up, the sort of things you might be doing, because a lot of the solutions that become scalable, that get taken up in the sector are ones that have come from institutional innovation, and then we look to scale them across the sector. So I've got 3 observations really. So the first thing we did, well, I'll start off by saying we had a consensus from everyone we spoke to that simulations don't replace on-the-ground lab or field work, and we felt we went along with that. It was a very strong message that we got, that but they can be a very useful in the situations we've got at the moment with the pandemic and the lockdowns, but also in terms of cutting costs, allowing for economic and environmental impacts to be mitigated. So we were already very aware of the availability of commercial lab and simulation packages. We looked at packages like Labster and Learning Science and found specific uses of simulation support and enhanced lab work. And they're particularly good at the sort of pre and post lab work as well, preparing people. And we'd seen similar sorts of things developing in the fieldwork area over the years. I mean, I worked on these myself and Laurie 25 years ago on sort of simulation packages, etc. then. So we were aware that this has been an ongoing thing in this field. But we couldn't really find anything that was commercially available in the area of fieldwork. There's some very good bespoke examples. I just mentioned a couple here. There was, you know, the Open University Virtual Skidder. I think that's been around for a while. I think Chris Skinner's work, the Hill Geo Labs, the simulations that he's done there, very interesting little packages. But I like the ones that we did many years ago. They're bespoke packages. They're expensive to produce, and they focus on one particular thing. And all the stuff that I did years ago has gone now. The technology took over. So we were looking, there's no opportunities really for those commercial packages. There's not much in the market there, and whether there was any opportunities there. The other observation we had was the use of sort of e-field notebooks. We saw a lot of that in the lab work area, but nothing in the field work area. Now, I think there's a presentation today which does talk about that, which is quite good to see. So whether there's a transference over that, the reason for e-field books, for the e-lab books, was because the students all went off in March and they couldn't get hold of their field books, and you had to find a way to mark them, and having that sort of consistency, the security of it, and moving into the 21st century in terms of using technology. So we're interested to see whether there are any field books, there are any electronic notebooks that are starting to be developed, and how they might be applied in the fieldwork area. So that was our first observation. Oops, forward 2 slides. The next one was around digital information. Certainly, when I was doing this a long time ago, there was not much digital information. But I think the one thing that has enabled this brilliant culture that you've got of being able to build your own simulations and build your own field trips and to adapt back in March and April to what needs to be done was how much digital information and open data there was now available. So, I mean, a lot of these are your personal collections, I can see. Some of them are published collections, like this Fieldwork stuff here, which I'm sure you're all aware of. Videos that you may have taken, but also there's quite a few open research data sets. And then open resources. Google Maps now is a very valuable source of information for sort of looking at, maps field areas, and the Google Earth stuff. People have set up remote cameras that you can use to monitor data, both in cities and in the country. So this is great. It's enabled a lot of things to happen. But what there isn't, or we couldn't find, was anywhere where people were actually sharing this data. Deliberately put something together where there was a sort of collaborative, everyone put their stuff in here. When I worked with John Stainfield back in the 90s, the idea there was to build a virtual Malta website where many institutions would put data together, and he put that forward. There was some traction, but I don't think it ever took off. But other opportunities now to maybe do that. We look at the JISC Open Data Research Hub, which allows you to sort of store data there. Might that be a source of where this could be? So there is already places where this could happen. So where could that data be collated? What are the opportunities? And then the other thing we considered is what are the opportunities for remote fieldwork using other sources of collecting data? So drones, remote cameras, robotic automation. Internet of Things, there's a lot of data now collected in agriculture, in the city, everywhere. Smart cities are collecting data, environmental data, soil sampling data, all that data is somewhere available. Are people using that? It'd be interesting to know, could we join up with it? And finally, I suppose this was the elephant in the room, and probably one of the first things that brought us to one of the challenges. We've got the data, we've got simulations. You're very, very good as a community of doing your DIY, building up your packages, adapting. I think that's just the nature of the sort of people in this field. But social connectivity is the hardest thing to replicate virtually. And how do you get that peer support? How do you replicate that little chat you have in the pub afterwards, or while you're on the field trip, or traveling back, or that? How do you sort of simulate that stuff that happens outside in the sort of, I suppose, the space after between 5 and 6 days with the wine thing? You can put those things together, but it's a difficult thing to do. The limitations of existing tools like Zoom and Teams that we're all using. Immersive environments, I'd be interested to see what's coming up around that today in terms of teaching, in terms of getting people involved. Maybe someday, maybe it's going to be big enough. At the moment, it's a difficult technology to scale. We've tried that, and it's we can do some bespoke stuff, but again, it's quite difficult to scale. There's some quite interesting, the picture there is high fidelity. For those of you who remember Second Life, embarrassed as I am to have been involved in a lot of that many years ago, but there's some emerging technologies now which are based more around socializing and people coming in social connectivity. Gather Towns, another one. Is this an opportunity to have a new way of communicating? Is it the start of some way where you can be in an environment and you gather in groups to actually talk to each other, rather than this, we're now sort of 60 odd people on one presentation, one person talking, and only one person can talk at a time, except we've got a little chat in the side. And I just finally thought, well, is there a new way of learning here and a new way of working? Are we going to see this whole thing change anyway, because the way that we work, the way that we learn is going to all change anyway? Is this going to be a shift in the things? Is actually this social connectivity, this virtual learning online, going to be the way we have to do it in the future? So it's raised some interesting questions. I'm here today to observe and hopefully find some interesting solutions. And I think I'm about on time there, Derek, am I?
Spot on, Paul. Thank you very much.
My last slide with my contact details. Please do get in touch.
Great, thank you.